Hello and welcome to From This Corner TV. I'm Marilyn Dayton, your host and producer, and I want to remind you that the reason we're here is to not just entertain you, but to talk about topics that both interest you and educate you. And today we're going to be talking about an international organization called Soroptimist, a global volunteer organization with over 1,300 clubs in 20 countries or territories, working to improve the lives of women and girls through programs leading to social and economic empowerment. The core values of this organization are gender equality, yay, empowerment, yay, education, diversity, and fellowship. So get out your pen and paper, and you're going to want to write a few things down today. So our guests today are Dr. Bernice Szafarek. Szafarek.
You were close.
Thank you. I was, Governor of SIANER, which is the northeastern region of Soroptimist, and Joan Merritt, who is the membership chair of SIANER. And welcome to both of you.
So nice to be here.
So ladies, let's begin with the question that I need to know. What does Soroptimist mean? What does that word mean?
So Soroptimist means the best for women.
Oh,
Sorrow from sister and optimist. Soroptimist.
perfect.
Yes.
The best for women. I
Yes.
love it. So for our viewers, there are two websites, and we're going to be posting them from time to time. One is the international one, and one is the northeastern region. And the northeastern region one is the one on the top. So you can always Google Soroptimist, if you can remember that word, and learn more. But we're going to be telling you quite a bit today. So let's talk about the history. Let's talk about the history of the organization itself, and then we'll talk about your local history.
Okay, Soroptimist was started in 1921 in California, back in the day when women weren't allowed to belong to Rotary and the Elks Clubs and the other service organizations. And it was actually started by a man who was wanting to start another organization, and he gathered these business women together, and in the day it was mostly business and professional women, and he formed a club in Oakland, California. So in a few years we'll be celebrating 100 years.
Wow.
And
Exciting.
yeah, it's great. It's great.
Yes.
So it's a club-based organization, and our club in Willimantic that Bernice and I belong to is going to be 50 years old this month actually.
Wow.
So we were chartered in 1966.
Wow. Okay, so I'm going to correct that because I said 40 years, so it's going to be 50.
But that's the region.
Yeah, the region.
The region
Yeah, our
is 40
northeastern
years.
region is 40
Okay.
years old. Yes.
1976.
Yes. Yes.
Started.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you said a man started
Yes.
the organization.
Yes, that's what he did. He started organizations and gathered people together. I'm not quite sure. I don't remember, what his business was, but he worked with the women to charter the club in Oakland, and it really grew really fast in California, especially in California. And still today, a lot of our clubs in the United States are in California on the West Coast. We don't have as many on the East Coast. And then it grew in the early, about 4 or 5 years later, they started chartering clubs in Europe, and they started the chartering clubs in England and in France, and so it grew very, very quickly. To now we have almost about 80,000 members worldwide, internationally.
Wow. And when I was talking about their core values, and we talked about gender equality and empowerment, which I love, of course, you know that. And I can't get past the fact that a man started this.
Yeah.
I just wish I'd met this man. I would have loved him probably. But major networking kind of guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this gender equality and empowerment. And let's talk about it on the international level before we then bring it down to national and then regional, if you don't mind.
Well, it is interesting, I think, that so many of those issues haven't changed that much. We're still talking about empowerment and equality for women. I think what is very special about Soroptimist International is that it is an international organization, and the way we actually are structured is there's the international organization, and then there are 4 what we call federations, and we're in the Federation of the Americas. So SIA is Soroptimist International of the Americas. But that actually does include North, South, Central America. It includes the Philippines and Japan and Taiwan and Korea also. So we're in one group, and then there's 3 other federations. Then each federation has their regions. So we have 28 regions, and we're the northeastern region. So to explore your question about women's issues, you started at the beginning talking about how education and empowerment are really crucial to our organization. I think more than some other organizations, we really believe in the hand up, not the hand out. And I think as women, we know that often when you help a woman, you help her whole family. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, sometimes when you help a man, you just help a man. Mm-hmm. So our focus has been on that.
And it's true. You know, I don't know, it's been said forever that the woman is the core of the family. And sorry, guys, you know, you Mr. Moms who stay at home, you're the core, okay? It's okay. Whoever is the one that's responsible for everything in the household. So let's go back to 1921, right? Back in those days, you know, women were starting to become more independent, right, and starting to have a voice and that kind of thing. You know, it was getting there. But we still, as you said, we're still fighting problems, especially in other countries, a lot of other countries.
Well, the issues, things like domestic violence and human trafficking, unfortunately, are definitely worldwide problems.
They are.
You know, that was somewhere where really Soroptimist educated me incredibly about those issues, that they actually exist right here at home. And that was a project that Joan found that our club did.
Yes. Human trafficking is one of the issues that we try to address in an awareness way. So Soroptimist has we have a Soroptimist Stop Trafficking, and if you go to our website, the soroptimist.org website, there are white papers about different issues for women, and they're research papers about issues, and one of them is human trafficking. So, you know, we learned a little bit about human trafficking, and we met this woman in Boston who was a playwright, and she had written a play called Body and Soul about 8 young people who were trafficked, who were forced into prostitution. And some of them were young children. Like the one little boy was only like 10 years old or something like that. Yeah. So we brought that to our conference, and then we brought it to our federation, and it raised a lot of awareness about human trafficking, and that program is still going on in the Boston area. They're doing lots of plays, and it's called Body and Soul, and it's more like a reading. It's not an interactive play, but it's a reading. But it really brings home the real tragedy of the fact that you can be taken off the street and forced into prostitution. You know, happens to women, young women and men, and it's not just about sex. Sometimes it's trafficking for domestic help. So it's not just about sex trafficking. And it's a huge industry. And
the playwright, actually, originally she was going to research it in another country.
That's right. Right. She originally went to Nepal to talk about trafficking, and she wrote her original story about girls in Nepal. And then she met somebody, and she said, "You don't have to go that far. You know, we can." So she told, these are 8 real life stories that she interviewed. These 8 who were then adults that told their story about being trafficked into prostitution. So that's one of the things that we do. You know, a lot of what we do is advocacy and awareness, and just making people aware. Soroptimist, our federation developed this program where they had these posters, and we posted them in transportation centers like bus stations and train stations, and it said, someone in this transportation center may be being held against their will. So look around. If you see something suspicious, say something, that kind of thing, you know.
Wow.
So that's one of the, and that's, you know, one of the things. And we talked about that, you know, Soroptimist Stop Trafficking before, 20 years ago, before that was really an issue that you hear. Now you hear a lot more about it, especially recently in the state of Connecticut, when there's been a lot in the paper about human trafficking and how zero cases have been prosecuted. Prosecuted, but not, nobody's been convicted.
And it's been 2 years, I think. They said that the bills have been on the books and nobody yet has been prosecuted.
Because it's hard to prosecute, because they're more about prosecuting. It's prostitution. It's more about prosecuting the prostitute than the person that's buying the service.
But they're the victim.
The victim, yeah. But that's a whole mentality that has to change. And I think that they're making some strides and working on it.
Well, awareness is always the first step. And that's where Soroptimist, for us, has opened our eyes, I think, to a lot of things that we may not have thought about otherwise.
Right.
I had no idea about the human. Of course, I didn't have a chance to look in detail at the website. But write it down, okay? Write down the website, go and read those white papers, read about human trafficking, because this is what they do, because we care.
That's right.
We need to let people know about these things. And yes, we read some articles in the paper that maybe 3 young girls went missing 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and they've been found, and that makes headlines. But what we don't do is look into more cases that, you know, people have not just been kidnapped and kept, but used in inhuman ways.
And that body and soul, that play was really interesting. We had a few different clubs produce it. So we would go to one of the colleges and have their drama club be the actors or actresses. And some of the clubs had certain speakers from different areas of government, different agencies, because I think what happens even when you go and read the white papers is you start to think about, what can I do?
Yeah.
I want to do something. So having that forum and being able to talk about it, you start to explore, you know, why do women end up sometimes in these situations? And you find out we aren't always as supportive of each other as we could be.
Right.
And I've found in Soroptimist, you make a lot of interesting friends, and it may be someone you would never have met otherwise, but what's linking you is that common bond that you really want to do something. You don't want to just sit back and observe.
And anyone can spread the awareness. Anyone can. We have social media people, okay?
Right.
That's what it's for. Spread good awareness, not silly, stupid stuff. But take something like this and say, did you know that there's human trafficking in our state, in our country? And then give them a link to a white paper, a link to the website that on the page that focuses on human trafficking. I think, you know, I think this is wonderful that that Soroptimist does this.
And social media has been a huge help in getting the word out. Just this past week on Friday, we had our club does a project in Willimantic for high school girls, and it's called the Dream It Be It Seminar for Girls, empowering young girls to live their dreams. That's what we're all about, helping women and girls to live their dreams. And one of the speakers told her story. She's been coming to our workshop for 12 years. She's a heroin addict, and she tells about her struggle with heroin addiction. And the girls are spellbound, and they just listen to the story thinking, and you know that some of those girls in the room know somebody that has a problem. And so we know in our hearts, we know that we're helping somebody, maybe take that time to reach out and talk to somebody. But I got home from that workshop on Friday, and there was an article that was posted on Facebook. It was President Obama had just did a summit about heroin addiction, which is a nationwide epidemic. And so I saw this on, it was an article, and so I posted it to our Facebook page, and over 200 people have seen it. I mean, that's like, you can tell a couple of people, but Facebook is really, because that was what one of the things one of the women said. We were sitting there and said, oh my gosh, it's such a sad story, and it just seems hopeless, because the suicide rate, the overdose of heroin is epidemic proportions in Connecticut, especially in New London, Connecticut, and in our town in Willimantic, it's a huge problem also. But she was like, we should do something. There's got to be something positive has to come out of this, you know. And I said, well, they're making really big strides. They are having conversations, and I didn't know that they were doing this. It was just a coincidence that I saw it, that they had done a thing. It was a picture of President Obama giving a heroin addict a hug, and the sign for he was at the summit. And so I just thought I would post it and just say that we talked about this at our Safe Choices, our workshop about empowering girls to live their
And there are
dreams.
so many areas like that, things like bulimia, anorexia. There are things that young women and other people go through where you really feel like you're the only one. And we know, no, this is a big problem. There are a lot of people facing it. But if you're the one going through it, it's hard not to feel alone. Or if you're the relative of someone like that, it's hard to feel like you're singled out somehow. So one of the things for me that is really fulfilling about being a Soroptimist is being a part of that network and being with other women who care enough to get out of their daily lives and go spend some time with other women thinking about women's issues.
Now, you mentioned something about the United Nations before we went on the air.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, one of the things that sets Soroptimist apart as an organization of women is that we have an NGO influence at the United Nations. So, which means that we're a non-governmental organization, and we get to have a delegation go to the United Nations to talk about issues. And just recently, every year in March for 2 weeks, they have what they call, the United Nations holds what they call the Commission on the Status of Women. And so Soroptimists from around the world, our international president and our past federation president did workshops. And some of those workshops could be about human trafficking or just different issues that they've come to know and they want to learn more about. And what they find is that we have a lot of Soroptimists attended, like there are different workshops and different things that you can do. And it makes a huge influence. It's like we have the right to sit at a table and to help with a group of other women and men from around the world make changes and make policy and to set policy around the world. And many great things have come out of these, discussions. One of the things that just has happened recently is that a few of the countries have now banned things that that happen to girls that that we don't do in countries, like
Customs.
the customs and stuff, so
Rituals.
rituals and things that they do. So, that it's a discussion about what's the right thing to do and what's right across the cultures. So it's an interesting position to be in, that we can have that voice and that we can talk to other people and gather in a group of women and men from around the world and say, what's your issue? And find that issues are really not that much different in different places. Sometimes in some places they're just worse. So that's the importance. And we've had that designation for a very long time. Our parent organization in England, Soroptimist International. We have UN representatives in New York and Geneva, and I'm sorry, but I forget there's another place that they have a United Nations.
Those are the
There's
two
three.
that come to mind for me, too.
So we have a United Nations representative that lives in Manhattan that goes to the United Nations every week, once or twice a week, for meetings about issues. So it's a great position to be in.
It's interesting how they do want the woman's perspective. Usually when you reach an insurmountable project. So one of the historical things that one of our members in the Farmington Club likes to talk about was that there was a project that the United Nations was sponsoring in a country in Africa, and this village didn't have a lot of economic avenues, so they decided they would send them tractors because then they could farm and they could build. So they sent them the tractors, and not a lot happened. Well, it turns out that it's one of those societies where really the women were more of the doers, and the men were not participating. So they decided to teach the women to drive the tractors. And all of a sudden, things turned around. So I think a woman's perspective often is not presented on a political forum because people just plain aren't thinking about how do we get this project done if there are women involved? What are their needs?
And we women are doers.
We really are. And that's one of the reasons when we do one of our other grant projects is to do disaster relief. So clubs and members and people can donate to the disaster relief fund. And so our projects are all women-based projects. So after the tsunami, which was a few years ago, they built shelters, domestic violence shelters. After the huge
You're thinking about Indonesia.
I'm thinking of Indonesia, but also then again Japan. The Japanese clubs got money from around the world, and they started a fund to send orphans to college. The kids that survived, but their parents didn't. They didn't have anything. So that's an ongoing project for the Japanese clubs to support these girls and boys, in this case, that want to go to college that don't have anybody to send them to college.
And there was another disaster, and the Soroptimist Disaster Relief Fund found out that there was an issue because there were supplies that were being furnished to this area that they were airlifting in, but you had to stand in line, and most of the women who either were pregnant or elderly just could not stand in line for 10 hours. So their relief program funded by the Soroptimists, they hired basically bouncer-type people to stand in line for these women so that they could get the supplies that they needed. So, I mean, that's definitely out-of-the-box thinking.
It is. It really is.
So most of our programs in that respect, in disaster relief and those kind of things, go to help women, because we know when we help women and we fund women projects, the whole community benefits, as Bernice said before, and it's a unique thing. And we talk about, even the United Nations now talks about if women were more involved in peace talks, there would be more peace. So our organization is working really hard to make, to help make some of those changes through that, awareness and advocacy.
I wonder why I've never heard of this organization.
I don't know.
We struggle with
a
that.
hard
We're
word
like
to
the
say.
best kept secret. It's a hard word. It's a hard word to say, and I think the world is definitely changing, as we were talking about before the show.
Yeah.
And one experience I found that there's these eye openers, like young people don't learn how to write in cursive anymore.
Yeah, I know.
So, in my writing as a medical professional is not always great, but I try. But I've realized if I have a young person in my office and I write something to them, it probably should not be in cursive because they're not.
They can't read it.
They can't read it.
They can't just not write it. They can't read it.
And nobody takes Latin anymore. So if I say sorrow means sister and optima means best, it's not really a part of people's education anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe that's why. We wish more people would learn about Soroptimists and go on the website, because there's so much to do, and we have a structure in place that allows that. And we've been talking about some of the international projects, but locally we do a lot of projects like Joan talked about with the Dream It Be It. We have a new exciting program that I consider Joan's little godchild, and it's a girls' space that we're creating for young women to meet and to talk about their goals and maybe have mentors that they don't have anywhere else in their lives, that isn't associated with school, and it's not your parents who could be wonderful but have some preconceived notions about how they want you to live your life.
right.
Yeah.
So we're pretty excited about that program
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
And
That's
I'm
really
excited to hear about it too, because what I want to do is I want to focus on the regional work after the break. But what I'm going to ask you in the audience is, have you written this word down yet? Soroptimist, just like it sounds, okay? A little bit of Latin in there. Because a lot of you have taken Latin, okay? So this is a good reminder.
Or should take.
Should have studied harder. Yeah, I barely remember Latin. But I want you to write it down, okay? Because, you know, we get to thinking we're doing okay. We want to make sure that we have a good life and we survive. We're so focused on ourselves, our family, and our immediate community that sometimes we forget that one person can make a difference.
Right.
Okay, it doesn't matter where you live, who you are, one person can make a difference. And so we're going to talk, after the break, we're going to talk about the regional organization, and we're going to talk about how you can find your local Soroptimist group, how you can become involved. One question I want to ask before we go to break is the body and soul, which sounds fascinating. If we've got someone who's watching and they say, you know, I have a group that, you know, we're looking for something to do, and something to do even as a fundraiser, whatever. We were going to put on a play, we were going to do this, do that. Maybe body and soul would be something very interesting to do. How can they find out more about body and soul?
Well, you can find out more about body and soul if my contact number was on there, so I have the person's contact if you want to do it that way. Or there is bodyandsoul.org is a website, and it's a Boston-based organization, and they're doing plays right now. So you can either just pay for the rights to do the play yourself, or you can pay more money and have them come and do the play them. For you.
Do the production for you.
Yeah, we did it through Eastern, and in New Haven they did it with Fairfield University, and we did it in Middletown with a local play company. So it's a very doable thing. It's not really expensive to buy the rights to do the play one time.
And I
it's a
think
really
most
good
of that, they were so excited to do it that the drama group at Eastern, you know, nobody really wanted to be paid for that because they just thought it was such an important thing to do. So basically we paid for the rights to
and they did all
be
the
able to
publicity
produce
and
it.
everything. So I think there are organizations. We were actually talking on, because we were in the same facility that we had that play when we did our workshop the other day, and we were saying we really should do that again because we haven't. It was probably 6 years ago that we did that. So we should. But they would welcome. They're really trying to promote that, and it is a huge issue, along with trafficking and prostitution. That whole issue is really a really difficult issue for people to talk about. But the play is very interactive, so they have spots where it's a discussion. So she goes into the audience and somebody will say, well, what do you think about that? What would happen if she did this instead of that, to create the discussion?
And so for a person who's an actor, that's a really fun thing to do,
Oh,
too.
absolutely. And it just seems like, whether you're a church group or whether you're a high school, a college, I mean, this would be something, it's not just entertainment, but it's information, it's education, it's awareness, which is our responsibility, okay, to make people aware of things.
And it's about saving lives.
It's about
saving
saving lives.
lives.
You're absolutely correct. So what I think we'll do right now is we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about Soroptimist more on the regional level, and we'll give you some ideas on how you can get involved, or at least you can maybe go to a meeting and find out more about it. Okay? So we'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Can you help me with this? My new dad teaches me all kinds of stuff.
Sure.
He helps me with homework.
That would be 3.6795.
Thanks.
Yep.
He helps me with my decision making.
I wouldn't use this one. ever.
And he's even teaching me how to drive.
And that's why cars have bumpers.
I'm learning so much.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making Home Affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Hi, and welcome back to From This Corner TV. We're talking about Soroptimist, which is an amazing organization, as I'm finding out and you're finding out, internationally and regionally. We're going to focus on regionally, but you were just saying, you know, like in the need varies according to location. In Europe or probably even in Asia, drilling a well would be extremely important.
Right.
And why was that? Will you share with our viewers?
Well, because women in a lot of places in Africa have to walk 2 hours each way to get water. And it's always done by the boys go to school. The girls don't go to school because they're the ones that have to go after the water and do the things that they have to keep the family running. So they don't have the opportunity to go to school. You can't do both. You can't spend 5 hours a day getting water and going to school. And there are so many things in that that environment that are holding girls back from going to school, and some of those things are changing as, you know, the developing countries get more technology and that kind of thing. So it's getting better. One of the things that happened to me as a Soroptimist is that I got to meet a Soroptimist and know her very well from Africa. She was here studying at Brandeis University, and she came with me just to put things in perspective. She came to me, and I took her to Foxwoods, and we were walking along the waterfall looking at the flowers, and there was a $5 bill dangling from one of the trees. And she was like, "Why do people throw money in the water?" And I said, "Well, you know, it's kind of a good luck thing. They think if they throw quarters and dollars in the water, they're going to get lucky." And she said, "That $5 bill would feed my family for a month." So, and the other thing she said, you know, people talk about, you know, I read the paper, you know, I'm here and people talk about poverty and how bad things are in some of the suburbs of Boston. And she said, well, there's poverty and then there's real poverty. And that's the difference. And so meeting people from other cultures is another wonderful thing that we get to do as Soroptimists. We meet and sit side by side in meetings with women from all over the world. And it gives you a whole new perspective of you know, what the world is like and what it could be if we all work together to you know, to help make those improvements.
It does. And when you're talking about empowering women, what we're saying is that you're talking about empowering women in different ways in different countries.
Right.
And through different actions. I mean, what other women's organization will go out and drill wells or pay for the drilling of wells to empower the women so that they can go to school? Mm-hmm. You know, you don't think about those things.
Right.
We're so far away from that. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I am totally becoming educated here. And I think it's absolutely wonderful. Yeah. I can't wait to learn more. So let's learn more.
Okay. Well, before we move on, though, to talking about the region, because we do a lot of great things here, I do want to mention that I was going to mention before that one of the things that we do internationally is every 2 years, every year or two, depending on our president, our international president, we pick a December 10th appeal, a project for the December 10th appeal. December 10th is the United Nations International Day of I just lost
Yeah,
it.
you told me
I
that
just said
right
it
before.
before, and now I can't remember what it was. Anyway, it's a day that we celebrate things that we do that we could help women in other countries or people in other countries. So right now, our project is helping women in Nepal, and it's projects that are done and facilitated by clubs all over the world. Some of them are here in the United States. Some a club in Australia. And a club someplace in Europe, I forget where. And they're doing projects to educate and empower women in Nepal. So where else do you have the opportunity to, sit and raise money and do things that you can help people on a local level, but you could also impact a woman that lives in Africa or Nepal? And that's what I think is the most important about our organization, and it's what keeps most of us inspired to keep on raising money and doing that, because we make an impact around the world.
And what we have to remember is, as your friend with the $5 bill said, when you're raising funds for an organization and you realize that it's going to go so much further in another country, and that you're going to be helping so many more people per dollar, per penny, per quarter.
As long as you're getting it to the right place, which is why we
Yes.
involve clubs in those areas to do our projects. So, so that's the difference. We know where the money isn't getting caught up in bureaucracy. It's going to really help people that really need it. So that's important too.
And I think we're talking so much about education because that's important for women to get ahead. There's a lot of different barriers. So in Africa, it's water. In the United States, sometimes it's the ability to envision yourself as that person you really want to be. Before the show, we were also talking a little bit about women in different professions. And you were talking about the 80s and trying to get funding to start a business. Well, in the 80s, I was starting my dental career, and I had decided I wanted to open my own practice. But I was pregnant with my third child, and I walked into the bank, and they basically kind of just laughed and said, "Oh, you must be kidding." And I had already worked in a practice. I had data. I had information about how many patients I had treated and what I had produced and how I had funded my employees. But there was just that impression that, well, you couldn't possibly do that. So those barriers are part of our Live Your Dream Award, which is a signature award that we have in Soroptimist International of the Americas. And we talked about how I am the governor of our region, the Northeastern region. So there are 28 regions. And one of the things that we do is we have what we call governors' roundtables. So we will meet, mine last year was in Los Angeles. And so I met with governors from the Philippines and Korea and Japan, and we were talking about how important it is for all of our clubs to participate in the Live Your Dream Award. So the Live Your Dream Award is an award that's given to a woman who is head of household, has a financial need, and is enrolled in an educational program. So that's really important. They have to be enrolled. But the award itself does not have to go towards tuition or books. It can go towards childcare. It can go towards transportation, all of those other barriers that prevent you from getting the education that you really are dreaming about. And we were talking at the federation level about how we'd love for all of our clubs across all of our regions to participate in this award. And it turned out that a lot of the clubs in Japan, not a lot, but a percentage, a bigger percentage than here in the United States, are not participating in the award. And I learned that it's partially a cultural issue of having too much pride to ask for help. So there's another barrier that you don't really think about, but it put me in a situation of understanding something about a country that I really don't know a whole lot about, but it explains some of the issues where we try to put our model into other countries and other areas of the world, but we have to adapt it. So we're constantly trying to adapt our model, our goal for empowering to a lot of different places. So it's quite the task, but as women, we're up to it.
Yes, that's
Yes,
right.
we are. We're up to anything, well, within reason.
And then recently, in the past year, we've launched the Dream It, Be It program, which is a little bit more flexible, and that's a club-based project, and you can really do anything that helps women and girls young girls. It's a girl product. It's supposed to be focused on careers and empowering girls to live their dreams. So in our club, we've done that project for a long time as a seminar, and then we are expanding it to do a weekly, kind of an after-school girls' space program, which we talked a little bit about before. But our federation has designed a curriculum so we can talk to the girls about doing these sessions of these important things, and it's all about barriers to living their dreams. Like it could be self-esteem. It could be, we have different barriers here.
Or
some
just
of them
goal
are
setting your
goal
goals.
setting.
How are
just
you actually going
learning.
to get there? And the brilliance of this is our previous award that we would give for young women was based on a young woman volunteering in the community and taking on a project that made an impact. And that was very worthwhile. But sometimes we found that it was hard to get the appropriate candidates to win that award. And at the federation level, they did a survey among young girls, 14 to 17, and basically said, what is it that you need? What could we offer you as an organization that wants to help young women? And they found out that they want mentors. They want women to show them the way and to say, if you run into this obstacle, how do you handle that? I mean, I remember being in the early days of my career, and a lot of people would say, oh, I'm going to go to medical school, or I'm going to go to dental school. And I would think, that's great. How are you going to get yourself there? And that is a big leap for some young women. And what ends up happening is the first time you run into one barrier that is like, I have to take calculus, that can just kill the whole dream.
Yes, it
And
can.
I think instead of having a parent saying, oh, don't be silly, or your teacher saying, well, if you just buckle down, you can come to our Soroptimist group, and I'll tell you that I took calculus 3 times during my career. I've never found it anything that I really felt was useful, but it was a step on the way to my career path. So I learned to just find the brightest person in calculus class and say, all I want you to do is explain what I need to pass this test, because I really am not going to use this a whole lot in my life. That's the kind of thing that I think we have to offer young women to make them more of a leadership role in their own environment.
And the interesting thing is that when you help someone, later in life, they're going to turn around and help someone. Because if you make a difference, write this down, if you make a difference in someone's life, they won't forget that.
That's right.
They won't forget you. And you will inspire them to when they come across, when their path crosses someone on a similar journey that they had, and they say to themselves, I can help this person because I received that kind of help.
Yeah, and that's what we find in the Live Your Dream winners when you follow up with them, it's not the money. I mean, although they needed that. When our club gives $1,000, and this year we did $1,000 for one winner and $500 for another winner, and it's not so much about the money. It's about this group of women who believed in them. And that carries them through a lot. And I was just talking to one this morning. One of our past winners was doing a Soroptimist thing at the YWCA this morning. We did a table, and I worked with her for a little while. And our support is really helping her to finish her school. She's going to be done with her bachelor's degree in a few weeks, and she's like tired, but she knows that part of how she got there was us, and so that's kind of keeping her going. A little bit of it.
And I think so many of us have so much more to offer than we think. Right?
Absolutely.
I speak to women in Soroptimist groups all the time. Well, I don't really You know, and all of a sudden they start telling me everything they're not good at, or what they can't do. Like, you know, I don't see that. And I will joke in our group, we'll do introductions, and I really want to introduce some of the other people because they're not saying a lot of the wonderful things they're capable of doing. And I think if you find that within yourself, you'll get the feeling that you were talking about, Marilyn, that you will feel like I helped somebody.
And when it's our Dream It Be It program that we're doing, we had to find, every Monday night is a big commitment. So it's not going to be just one person or two people. So we really looked at our members and asked, what is it that you could do to contribute to this? And it was amazing, some of the answers we got. Well, you know, I could teach people, I could teach the girls how to eat more healthy snacks. And I could teach the girls, we have many varied women from all kinds of backgrounds. We have a woman that wants to do some dance classes and just all kinds of things, gardening, and all kinds of things. So now we're in the process of trying to take the sessions, the curriculum sessions that we've been provided as a guideline, and part of it will be a kind of a interactive. We're going to sit around and talk about, you know, goals or whatever it is that session talks about, and then they're all going to get a movement class afterwards. So it could be we're going to move around and make some healthy snacks, or we're going to do yoga, or maybe a dance class or self-defense, because it's going to be fun. Because we did a survey, and all of the girls said they wanted to do something that was fun because they've been in school all day, and you know, so you know, they don't want to be talked to and told what to do. It's about figuring it out together. So that's a great program. So in that program, a club can do anything that they want within the realm of that parameter of empowering young girls.
There's a club in Providence, Rhode Island, and they've really developed their curriculum. They've followed the same group of girls now into the second year, but they have a program called, it's Miss Manners, right?
Yeah, part of it is, yeah.
And they have a little spoof kind of thing that they do about how you present yourself at luncheon, because let's say you're going to try to get a job. You know, a lot of people, you don't really think about, if I'm going out to lunch with a prospective employer, what would be the important things? And they do it in a very fun kind of way to teach the girls about some great skills.
If somebody's, as people are watching this show and they're thinking, I could do that, my friend could do that, or we could do that together, what do they do to find a local organization, a local group?
A local Soroptimist club. So going on to the local Soroptimist Northeastern Region website is probably the easiest way. You can do an inquiry online from both of those websites. So there's a little thing that'll say, you know, get more information, and you can click on it. So you give your information, and that's automatically generated to me because I'm the membership chair. So then when I get the email, I'll send an email and what would you like to do? And sometimes, often I'll send an email. If it's somebody local, I might meet them for coffee, or, you know, and just chat about what their interest is. And sometimes we engage people that aren't necessarily near us, because we're a big area to cover. The Northeastern region covers all the way up to Maine. And so we have members in Maine, we have a member in Massachusetts that's working on our spring conference. So there's a lot of things you can do to help individually as a member, and you don't have to necessarily come to the meetings. We do have meetings once a month, but if that's not your thing, you can be engaged in project. And that's what I do as membership chair, is to try to engage the women. And I follow the inquiries and find out what it is that they want to do and match them up with the place that's closest to them, and try to get them working on a project. And we have real good success with that in our club in Willimantic, because we're busy and we have a lot of opportunities for
And then there are
help.
the people who maybe don't have the time to come to a local meeting. So we have a branch, a web presence that's called liveyourdream.org. So that's easier to remember than Soroptimist if you're typing it in. So liveyourdream.org just tells a lot of interesting viewpoints about things that we do around the world and positions. And so that's a way to go on and learn a little bit more. Wouldn't give you that local involvement that I think Joan and I find so.
Yeah. But that's not what
refreshing.
everybody is looking at. I mean, we enjoy, the meetings and communicating with each other and facilitating the projects. That's not everybody's thing. I find that everybody brings something to the table. Everybody has a skill that they bring, and it may not be that they can, that they want to attend meetings or take notes and things like that, but they may be great at, facilitating a discussion with girls. And it's a great learning experience. I've learned a lot being a Soroptimist, and it's great to see some of the young women. One of the women, Bernice was talking about the Youth Award, and that woman, we had a young woman win that about 10 years ago, and she joined our club in the spring last year, and she helped facilitate the seminar for the young girls, and it was great to see this young woman stand up there and talk to the girls. She did part of the career panel where she talked about her journey through college and into her career in healthcare, which is not what she started out to do, which was interesting to hear. And the girls asked great questions. Well, what did you do about that? And when that happened, so it was a great interaction. But it was great to see this girl, as you said, they know and appreciate what we did, and lots of times they come to pay it back and to pay it forward.
And that means we are still relevant. And I think when we talk about organizations, everybody has some struggles now. In my dental association, it's the same thing. You can't get as many people to physically come to a meeting all at once.
Yeah.
So maybe you do more conference calls. Or maybe you just participate in an interactive project like what Joan was saying,
Right.
where this young woman came and really was a role model for the girls that day. And maybe she can just do that once every 3 months, but there's a place for her in our Soroptimist too.
Because not everybody has vast amounts of time to give. We
We all have 24 hours.
Yeah, we have, sometimes there are women, we've got several members in our club that are women that are working full-time and going to school part-time. Sometimes they're going to school full-time and
And they have
working full-time,
children.
and they have children, and it's like, how do you fit it all in? But they stay connected because they know that what we're doing is important, and it's in that community that we create as a club is important, the support.
that you get, that, there's another woman in that room who knows
That's
how
right.
you're feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
Because she's
Yeah.
done
Right.
it also.
Right.
That's important. Now, you've both been a member for a long time. What caused you to learn about it and become active in the organization?
I think when I first joined, it was more geared toward that professional business, and you had to be invited. And I think they had actually had a fashion show, which is something also that you don't see as much anymore. But
Yeah.
my husband and I went, and I think we won this tracksuit or something, which he got all excited about. And then they invited me to a meeting. And frankly, I think I was earlier in my career, and I think I was thinking, oh, this would be a great way to let people know about my dental practice, and maybe I'd get some patients to come. But then shortly after that, the next couple of meetings, they needed somebody for a treasurer's position, I think. And Joan laughs at me because I'm the master delegator and nobody else would volunteer. So I said, okay, I will do it as long as I have some helpers. And it turns out people are very willing to do some small part of it, but they're kind of afraid to be the leader. And as time went by, I just realized these women are friends. When my mom died, I had been a Soroptimist for maybe 2.5 years, and about 5 of the members came to her funeral. And I was just so pleased to feel like, oh, they're doing all, or they'll send notes, if they know you're having a tough time with something. So it's a little piece of something that I envisioned happened years and years ago,
Right.
the quilting clubs, and then women got together. But it's still alive and well in Willimantic anyway.
Now, you were trying to, tell us your story, and then...
I was asked by a friend of mine that she asked me to come to a meeting. They were doing a Day for Women event at Eastern, and our club was responsible for providing breakfast. So we went and poured coffee and did things. I thought, well, I can do that. And then I met these women, and and the different women, and I just was like, wow, I think this is something that I could do. And then she invited me to come to our meeting, which happened to be their awards dinner. So when you go to an awards dinner, you meet the women that have won the Live Your Dream Award and the Youth Award, and you hear their stories, and you can't help but feel like, wow, these women really are making a difference in the lives, and I want to be part of that. So I came in because I was involved in a project right away, and then I remember sitting at the meeting, the next meeting after the awards, when it was a business meeting, and they passed around this committee sign-up sheet, and she was like, well, you need to do that because I think you'd be really good at that. So she made sure so that was a really good lesson. It's like, make sure that you're engaged in something, because if you commit that you're going to do this, then you're going to come back to a meeting, you know.
And to have someone say you would be good at that.
Yeah, and I loved all the women. They were great. I was, you know, my kids were in high school, and, you know, they didn't need to be, they were driving, and, you know, you didn't need to be there every minute like you did when they were younger. So it was a good time for me. A lot of women join at that time of their lives when they're looking for something else to do as their children get older.
Yeah.
So traditionally, that's why. But our club, now what we're doing with the Live Your Dream program and the Dream It Be It program seems to be resonating more with the younger women. So we've had a lot of young women join our club recently, and they have so much energy, and they have limited time though, so they'll say, I will do that. You know, I don't want to chair it necessarily, but sometimes
and
they
keep
do.
us focused. I don't
Keep
want
you
to
focused.
hear your
Right,
long,
that's
long
right.
story
That's
about
right,
when you were little.
Right.
What's
So it brings a whole new, whole new perspective to what we're doing, and it's great. A great mixture. We have women from all ages and from all walks of life, and it's not just that we're all dentists or real estate. It's not like going to the dental association meeting and you're only talking about dentistry, and it's not like you're going to the teachers association if you're a teacher. So.
Right.
It's a good an avenue for people to express themselves in whatever way they have time for and the talent for.
Well, I think it sounds like a wonderful organization, and I'm very sorry to say we're starting to run out of time. So, but I think we covered a lot of information that our viewers would find very interesting and relate to, possibly. And there are the two websites. Go check them out, please do. And go to a meeting. The meetings will be listed on the website, right?
Some of them are, or you can just, connect with that, the inquiry, and we'll get in contact with you and match you with a place where you're near.
That sounds
We're working on
wonderful.
trying to get a club down in this area, in the shoreline area of
know,
Connecticut.
yeah.
So, that will be something that will probably happen in the next few months.
That sounds wonderful. And you'll talk about it on the website.
That's right. That's right.
So,
We're on Facebook.
Yes, Facebook too. Thank you so much for
Thank you
coming.
for having us.
It's been very, very informative. I'm really excited about this organization. I think it's wonderful. And I know there are a lot of viewers out there that would have a lot of interest in it. So I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for having us.
My pleasure, believe me. I like to finish with a quote every time. And this time I went to Nelson Mandela. And he said a lot of amazing things over the years. But what I wanted was something where we could focus on helping others. So this is what he said. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. And I think as human beings who care about other human beings, we should do what we can to help other people. And so that's what I'm charging you with. Okay, think about that. And an organization like this would be wonderful. There are other organizations, but just take that first step. Say, I can contribute, I can help. And then do it, okay? So we try to have interesting people from organizations, from the business world, from the world of, from schools, people who work with children. And if you've got some ideas, remember, you can send me an email right there on the bottom, fromthiscornertv@gmail.com. And all of our shows are on our website, and I talk about them all the time on Facebook. So please check something out if you haven't seen it, okay? And in the meantime, look for our next show, because we'll be back very soon. Thank you for joining us.